I'm watching the news they're talking about the tariffs that Trump enacted across all countries and all of that and all the side effects. And I realized that, they talk about the fact that everything is going to go up, and as stagflation, which is a stagnation of the economy, and inflation hits, which is what they're predicting, things are going to get much harder for poorer people in the United States. But then, I'm always trying to look at the silver lining, and I realize that if we have stagnation and inflation, then Social Security is going to go up. And if you're living in the U.S., that won't really mean anything because your purchasing power will go down tremendously as prices go up, whether it's avocados from Mexico or Temu or Amazon products, or 90% of the stuff that's at Walmart, it all comes from China. But if you live outside of the country and you get a higher rate of inflation, which translates into a higher rate of increase in Social Security in November, last year was 2.5%, didn't even begin to cover the prices that went up in the United States. But if it went up 3.5%, 4%, or whatever it might be, and you're living outside of the country where that buys more, then that's a significant difference that can increase, in fact, a lot of expats' lives. And I know quite a few that are pretty well off, but then I also know quite a few that are like me, living on just Social Security, or $800 to $1,000 a month. And you can live quite well in many places in the world for $1,000 a month. Mexico is one of them. You can look at a bunch of videos. It used to be cheaper there, now it's not so cheap. Costa Rica used to be really cheap, and now it's not so cheap. But you can live in Nicaragua, Salvador, some places in South America, as well as in Europe, depending where you go. I have a friend of mine. He's Russian, but he lived in the United States and owned the company and living on Social Security, and he lives really well. He doesn't live in Russia. He lives in some of the little countries around it, but has full medical care, free. Flies to the United States once or twice a year, goes, traveling. I met him here in Nicaragua, and he lives on $1,000 a month. He gets a little less than I do, actually. And he can do all of that. So for people like that choose to make that leap, it can be a wonderful way to live better. I was talking to my friend Tim, and I was saying, oh my God, my electric bill went up by more than double. It went from $4.10 to $8.30 for the month. And it's like, at $8, I don't even bother turning up the lights half the time. And we're talking about him, he owns a couple of apartments, and I used to own rentals, and it's like, Christ, the electric bills are $150 to $300 a month, and if you live in Arizona running the AC in the summer, it could be even higher than that, which for somebody on Social Security, my sister used to live on $700 a month on SSI. It's an incredible amount of hardship to be able to do that, because there's just no way. Whereas here, my apartment's 170, and you could find even a cheaper one if you wanted to. And food is really cheap. I bought one of those tomahawk steaks that Maya, my daughter, told me, oh yeah, I went to one of those, with their company. It was $170 for a tomahawk steak dinner. Here, I bought a brand new one, uncooked, for $23. So it's a lot cheaper to eat here than there. And, they don't use pesticides, and they don't have GMO products and all of that. And drugs are really cheap. And even if you're a foreigner, you can still get medical coverage for free. Some people like to pay extra for having private clinics, instead of being free and waiting 2 hours to be seen Maybe you pay $30, $40 a month and you get seen right away, and you have the phone number of the doctor. You can call him from home. But beyond that, you can still get coverage. So a lot of it is choices. I mean, when I came down, I only had $200 to my names. I hadn't sold anything, and I was still able to make it work. Somebody offered me $1,000, and that helped a ton in buying all the appliances that I needed, because it's like you can rent a furnished place, but then you're looking at $300, $400, $500 a month. But if it's unfurnished, you can get it a lot cheaper. So I rented 2 or 3 different places, as you all know, and they ranged from $165 to $180 a month. And I could have rented a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house for $195, but I had to pay my own electricity. And because I had no idea how much electricity was, in my mind everybody kept saying it's really expensive here. Me coming from the United States thinking, oh, that'd be like $200, $300 a month. So I didn't want to take that chance. Now I know better. It's like, oh, okay, like $10, maybe 50 if I have an air conditioner running 4 hours a day. But there's ways to get through it, and when I first came, I didn't have much of anything. I just bought a lawn chair, a plastic chair, and a couple little things and some pots and pans. I didn't have anything. When I went back to the U.S., then I bought some more, or I brought some from there, and then as I sold some stuff, I was able to buy more, and now I have a couple of recliners, 3 or 4 tables, and again, you can get some really nice handmade furniture here, or you can just buy cheaper stuff. So I've been buying cheaper stuff, and as I paid off all my debts, I've been able to buy a little bit better stuff and all that. So there's ways around it, but sometimes people just want the very best right away, and that's not going to happen. I know a guy that's doing really well, but he's paying $800 a month for an B&B, until his apartment gets ready, and that wasn't a possibility for me. I had to pay $200 a month. So I stayed in cheaper places, and obviously his place is a lot nicer. And hey, if you can afford it, by all means, that's great to do that. My focus was getting my resident papers done and buying a motorcycle, so I had transportation. So now I have a bike, and I fixed a few things on it, and now I can get around and zip in and out of town and get stuff done in 5 minutes instead of 2 hours to take the bus and wait out there in the hot sun and all that. So that makes a huge difference. But my point is, there's a lot of different things one can do to get ahead. You just have to be willing to go outside of the normal rules. I mean, I grew up in Buenos Aires and Tostan, and then in Palo Alto. Now, we bought a house in Palo Alto for $37,000. Now you can touch one for under $1.5 million. And Palo Alto was great to grow up in back then. Now, obviously not. So things change all the time. I lived in Portland for 30 years, and it was great when I was there. And now I've gone back to visit, and it's like, there's not enough money in the world to make me want to move back to Portland. The only thing I miss about Portland is the microbrews, but beyond that. So my point is, there's a lot of stuff one can do to change one's situation, and even though things are not looking too good right now with the economy and some of the things that Trump is doing, there is a silver lining in anything if you look for it. So that's my hope, is that you find the silver lining in whatever situation you're at, and you make changes. And some of those changes, I'm not going to lie to you, they require a certain amount of self-appraisal and facing your own fears. Because, when I stepped off the plane with a little backpack, like a day pack, and $200 to my name, it wasn't, a comfort feeling. It's like, oh, this is wonderful. It was like, oh my God, what the heck am I getting myself into? But it's gotten a lot better. And that's what you have to be willing to do. And some people are able to do that, and some people are not, because of health or because of language barriers. But if any of you guys want to come, I'm happy to help you in whatever I can. don't charge for the service at all. Um, but I've gone around and I've learned a few things and made some contacts. So some people are paying $1,000 for residency here. The lawyer that I hired cost me $130 to draw up all the papers, and he did my papers for the motorcycle, for $20. So it depends where you go and who you get. I mean, if they have fancy offices and if they speak English, obviously they're catering to a different clientele and they're much more expensive. But with my language skills, it helps because I can help translate and speaking Spanish to them, so I don't get charged gringo prices necessarily. I don't get charged as cheaply as Nicaraguans because there's a 3 or 4 tier pricing, but certainly I don't get gringo priced nearly as much because like today. Well, yesterday somebody wanted to sell me a little table. I bought a little table to put under the fridge because it's a small fridge, and it's like I had to bend down on my knees, which I've replaced just to be able to see the bottom drawer. So I wanted to buy a little table to put the fridge on so then I could actually see it at eye level better. And they were selling them on the street, and it was exactly the kind of table I wanted, some cheap thing that I could put the fridge on. And they wanted 400 pesos. And like, I paid 400 pesos for one made out of really nice roble, oak wood, polished and all that. I'll give you 200. And it's like, okay, 250. He's like, okay, that's fine. So, bought it for 250. And like that, it's pretty much everything. You have to haggle and you have to be willing to haggle. And, some Nicaraguan person probably would have gotten it for 180. but that's okay. I don't mind that. But it's just part of the business at hand here. And that's the part that I can facilitate or help with some people. The motorcycle, same thing. I've had to replace, I chose to replace the rims on the bike and the spokes and, had a tune-up and valve adjustment and all of that put together, I think cost me $110. Brand new rims, upgraded rims, not even the cheap Chinese ones, better ones with new spokes and new oil and this and that and the other. So things are a lot cheaper here. I mean, when I was in the U.S., my truck, which I sold and I loved dearly, it would cost me $200, $200 to $250 to fill the tank. It had a 30-gallon tank and a 50-gallon tank. And granted, that lasted me a while, but that's a ton of money. Here on a motorcycle, I filled it up one time. I've been up the mountain 20 miles back to Esperanza's brother's house, which is, it's like a major ordeal to get there, but it's only like 4 miles by bike. And I've been running on the same gas tank, and I think it cost me like $4 for the whole tank of gas. And I'm still using the same tank of gas to go shopping, to pick her up, to take her downtown, to go pay the bill, to go get food, whatever. And I couldn't do that in the U.S. where I was living because, we were 45 miles from the closest Walmart. Just to go get a quart of milk at Siloam, which was 50-mile round trip, but it cost me $4 or $5 or more. No, my truck got 18 miles a gallon. So to go 50 miles, you do the math, it's about $12 to $15 in gas just to go get a gallon of milk for $2. Here, I can walk down to the corner street if I want and buy all the vegetables I want, the meat, the eggs, and all of it put together comes to less than $20 for 3 or 4 days. So it's definitely a lot better. And even if you didn't speak the language, you could just point to the eggs, point to the chicken that you want and the vegetables, and it might cost you $30 instead of $20, and it'd still be way better off. So if you were to move to a place like here, it doesn't have to be here. A lot of people move to Vietnam. And I loved being in Thailand when I had a girlfriend that spoke fluent Thai and English and all that. But the language barrier was just too great. The Asian languages are too hard for me. And I'm too old to learn them now. But Spanish, it's like, Spanish is fairly simple. English, French, Italian, they're all similar. And you can, I mean, now you have a phone that it'll translate for you, and you can talk to somebody by the phone translating as you're speaking. So as long as you buy a halfway decent phone for $150, it'll do all of that, or download the app or whatever. Um, so there's a lot of things that can be done if one is willing to. If you're not, well, then you don't. But anyways, this is just a short thing. I mean, it started out because I was looking at what they're predicting because of the Trump tariffs and all of that. And then it occurred to me about the Social Security, how if it goes up, to 4% annual increase because of the inflation in the United States, that'd be devastating, because if they raise Social Security by 4%, I mean, real prices went up by 8, 10, or more percent. But in other countries, that's not the case. I mean, even in Mexico, that was more expensive than here. It was still way cheaper for me living in Mexico than it would have been in Arizona. And I could still walk or bike on my bicycle everywhere. There, I had an electric bike. Here, because of the plane, it's hard to bring lithium batteries, although they do sell electric bikes here. But that would work in town, but you get outside of town, there's too many hills. I think it would drain the battery very quickly. Anyway, so that's my thought for today. I hope you enjoy it. It's mostly for expats since it's not in Spanish, but it's for people that are considering making a move. It might be worthwhile. Hope you enjoy it, and leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to hear more. If you like the content, by all means, tell me other things you want to hear about. I've been very fortunate. I've met a lot of Nicaraguan people because I'm in a Nicaraguan neighborhood. My landlady's Nicaraguan, my girlfriend's Nicaraguan. So I get to meet a lot of people and talk to them. One of the things, it occurred to me today, it's like, when I lived in Portland, one of my Argentine friends who had just come, he started having a get-together with people who were Argentine and Americans as a way to practice English for him and for other people to practice Spanish. So I suggested to the group that I started here in Matagalpa on WhatsApp, I said, this would be a great way to get together, because a lot of the Americans don't speak any Spanish and they're trying to take classes to learn. It's like, if we have a get-together, coffee clutch, if you will, once a week, be good to meet local people, and they could practice their English and you could practice your Spanish. And one guy, he said, yeah, and probably because they make less money here, us Americans could pay for the coffee, for them. And it's like, yeah, that'd be great. So we'll see if that takes off, but that's a great way to meet people and to connect. I used to do massage professionally. I was a massage therapist for a number of years up in Alaska. I used to actually teach classes in massage in the college. And I finally got not a table, just a regular kitchen table. I bought a mattress, and oil and the whole 9 yards. And I gave Esperanza a massage. And she was, that was wonderful. She'd never had one. And she was talking to, she used to work for the Social Security office here. And she knows a ton of people. A ton of people. And a lady that is like the elected official for the party for all of that. She told her, maybe he'd be interested in giving a class or giving massages to the elderly, because, Social Security, so the elderly people. I said, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. So who knows? Maybe we'll do that. But it's a way to meet people, and it's a way to share whatever one has to give. I love massage personally. It's something that I've always enjoyed giving as well as receiving. And if I can, give a class once a week, or give massages to old people, to help them with their aches, I'm happy to do that. And you folks, whoever you might be that are watching, you probably have other skills, whether it's cooking or sewing or, whatever. I can't sew to save my life. I used to duct tape my pants because I cannot sew. And I wish I had that skill, but I don't. So I have them sewn. But, that's a way to meet people and, at the same time pick up the language and offer something. And when you do that, you get integrated into the society. So consider, if you're thinking about making a move and enjoying your life and how you're going to meet people, well, that's a way that you can meet people. Where, some of you I know are teachers. You could give English classes for free at the senior center, and you meet a lot of people, including government officials and police and people that work for the city, which is really nice because, like, everywhere we walk, people wave at Esperanza and by default me. So I get to meet a lot of people, and it puts you in a whole different light when you're traveling to another country. If you have somebody that can open doors and kind of introduce you as, hey, this person is okay. So that's something to consider. And, I'm offering that. If anybody wants to move down here, I'm happy to take you around. If you're not too scared, I'll even drive you around the motorcycle. But, all right. So have a great day. Enjoy. No matter what's happened, there's always a positive outcome. As I used to tell people, no matter how bad things get, if you don't get to a positive outcome, you're not done thinking, because the universe, or God, if you want to call it, always has a positive outcome. Just might not see it right away, and you might have to work at it, but it's always there. So, all right. Have a great day, and we'll chat again.